Thanks a lot for that, Sarah. Jeff just made his way to the panel with his cell phone, which he nicely put away in his jacket, because we are talking about putting the cell phones away when it comes to our driving and our driving habits. Joining us for this panel, John Brenner from CFRA, Melanie Adams from 93.9, and of course Jeff just made his way over here from the weather station. All right, I want to just quickly go through some of the study that came out of the University of Alberta when it's talking about hands-free devices, saying they're not necessarily safer. This is from a study. They had 26 male drivers with clean driving records in a simulator in Edmonton. Participants were given 4 minutes to drive without distraction, then received a phone call on a hands-free device for 2 minutes. The experiment was repeated after a 5-minute break. There was a significant increase in the number of errors during the hands-free part of the drive, 25 to 50% more. People going through stop signs, crossing the center median. One person actually had an accident. So this is all clean driving records and moving and changing things to receiving phone calls. And so, you know, this has been something that we have seen plenty of, and we've been talking about it going from the texting. Now we're looking at hands-free and trying to see what's happening with that. Your thoughts on this?
Oh, did I get a refund for my blue ant? Well, you know what? I mean, what's distracted driving? You have a car full of people and they're all talking at you. You're distracted. I mean, how many times have you seen the person sitting in front of you at the light going, so you know, if we're going to this party tonight, Green, we really ought to stop by M&M's and pick up the blah, 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 blah,
yesterday,
you know, and you're
yesterday I got distracted because I saw a hot guy on the sidewalk. So do we outlaw those next? I'm sorry, no more hot guys.
Maybe.
We got to get rid of you, Jeff. You have to go.
Get real. Yeah, and I worry about that, like your kids in the back seat, you know, I'll turn this car around, and you know, you're having a conversation. It's obvious that something happens to the human brain when you can't see the person you're speaking to, or maybe even when they're beside you, I'm not sure. But I try and keep my eyes on the road when someone's talking to me, but you see people in the cars, blah, 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 you know, and it's like, there's a lot going on. It's a very dangerous situation at all times on the road.
I find it much more difficult when I've got my toddler in the back literally having a complete and total meltdown and hitting my chair and asking for something and throwing things my way in terms of the distracted driving then. But when you're personally, I find it much more calming when I'm just hearing a voice and having a conversation, and yet I'm completely involved, or at least I feel that I am having a conversation with someone while I have no other distractions in the car and just focused on the road.
Well, there are going to be distractions, and there are going to be people like you who can do a phone call and not have a problem. I can't. I'm useless if I try and even use a hands-free when I'm driving. But, I mean, unless they find a way to cancel out every potential distraction that could happen, there will always be crashes. It doesn't matter what you ban or what you regulate.
I have called and texted Melanie in the past and got no response, and I lived. It was amazing. I made it through that experience and get the response about, you know, 5-10 minutes later, sorry, I was driving. It's not that hard to do. You can do that, and that's something that you do all the time.
I can't. Because I'm one of those drivers that all I can think is this car's worth thousands of dollars. I can't wreck it. I don't care about the phone. I'll answer it later. That's, and if that's what gets you through it, I mean, if you don't want to think about how you might hurt yourself, fine. But think about how much.
What if you have devices that are talking to you? I mean, you have devices that are made for vehicles that have actual voices talking back to you.
GPS.
See, you know, like what happens to that? Am I distracted by the voice that's telling me how to get to and from a location?
Well, here's the beauty of the Bluetooth link, okay? Because you don't have to do the hand dial because it talks to you, all right? So when I say Leanne Lang, it goes, dialing Murphy's Auto. It's like, it's true. What the, you know, so, I don't know, I think somewhere along the line we have to be cut some slack and have to, you know, otherwise you just take it all out. Because if it's distracted driving that way, then CD players.
Take out the radio.
Business reports on CFRA, very distracting.
But I'm just saying, like, eventually there's got to be a study. I mean, it's just every study is going to prove something. So in this list there should have been, and we also did a study with 26 mothers with their toddler in the back having a meltdown, and then see what the percentage of, you know, the distracted driving is. You know, we put 4 teenagers in a car talking about prom, and this was the discussion. You know, like, I think every one of these studies is going to come back with some differentiation of a 20 to 30% increase in being distracted.
I think nobody ever did these studies when they had 8-track players that were mounted below the dash.
Yeah, you had to get there.
Jamming in when you were playing, hearing 4 songs at once.
Not that I'd remember any of that. I think the interesting part about this study that really tells you is what's going on in cars around you and how you need to be on the lookout, because a lot of people are doing are far more distracted than this study has shown them to be, right? So like not hands-free. You see it all the time. This
Still the
business.
texting.
I know what you're doing. Like this is, nobody ever does this and looks at their lap while sitting at a light. Like we know what you're up to. And so you're keeping your eyes open for potential hazards, which is everyone on the road, because the real problem isn't cars, it's the drivers, right?
Yeah.
Interesting topic. Thanks so much to our panel for joining us once again. Still plenty more to come here on CTV Morning Live. We're going to be joining in just a little bit with Kurt Stidley, who has an Ask the Expert with autophysiotherapy. But first, we're going to head back to Melissa Lamb, who's been getting a great lesson in terms of our own creations and our own pond world.